3:03, time to start. Excellent. Welcome to the last session of our Waste-Free Future Summit. My name is Kirsty Pecci. I'm the Executive Director of Just Zero. I wanted to introduce myself, let you know that we're very excited to have you here today. I wanted to give you also a quick recap of the summit so far. We did a keynote address with Alden Wicker. That was fantastic. We had a networking event, really great, where we had breakout rooms and people could meet based on what their interests were in the movement. Uh, Eco in the Echo Chamber, where Liv, Erica, and Dana talked about communications and how we made sure that our messages are actually getting through to folks. Fantastic session. From the ground up, we had 6 excellent local leaders who are driving zero waste change across the country. Check that out if you didn't get a chance to see it. This morning, the poison pipeline, waste pollution and public health. Fantastic. Laura from our team, Laura Orlando from our team, as well as Gretchen Salter and Bobby Wilding and Mireille Rajani, who's on our board, all did that together this morning. It was fantastic. I hope that you got a chance to see it. If you didn't, please check out the recording. And then today, to finish this up, we have 2 of my favorite women in the world, Vanessa Zapata, who's our attorney here at Just Zero. She is, as I told a coalition meeting today, fantastic, fantastic drafter of bills, fantastic an analyzer of laws and regulations, absolutely brilliant woman. And then I can't say enough about Olivia Chabot. As I say all the time, I would wear her report designs and the web designs if I could. I have ordered yarn that is based on the color schemes this woman has thought of, but also deeper than that, Liv has a really wonderful understanding of how to best communicate all the different complex ideas that we're trying to do simply and clearly, and then also how to make sure that our website is accessible so that people can actually get what they need from it. So I can't say enough about these 2 women, and I'm so excited to be on this call with you all today. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. The event is being recorded. Participants can ask questions in the chat throughout the event, and we'll try and get as many of them as possible in the Q&A. We're also going to put a bunch of resources in the chat, and we will send the recording as well as the resources out to folks after the event if you signed up. So again, please ask questions in the chat. All right, so the first conversation we want to talk about is why has Just Zero redefined our work on zero waste into 4 new projects? We can slice and dice this a lot of different ways. Why did we do this in this way? Corporate pollution, healthy environments, preventable waste, and zero waste systems. To start, I want to hand it over to Liv so she can explain to you all, from a communications perspective, why we chose these 4 buckets. Because again, we can slice this and dice this in a lot of ways, Liv. Why did this make sense?
Thanks so much, Kirsty, and thank you for that very nice introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today. My name is Olivia Chabot, and I am Just Yours Communications Director. So, Kirsty, to answer your question regarding, why we chose these 4 buckets to really restructure our work into, one of the biggest pieces is clarity. My role as communications director is always to take a critical eye to how we talk about our work, how we publicize our work, and when we need to pivot. And so, this was a need that I had been on our website, and I was like, I'm kind of confused. Like, I think we need to pivot. So, alongside other team members, we all kind of came together and thought critically about what makes the most sense and is the most clear in and the best way to present our work, what we do, and how we're doing it. So that was, really the drive for this. But one of the other things that we wanted to do was to really showcase just how multifaceted and interconnected waste issues are, as well as the solutions. So that was a big piece of this as well. But it's not just how we structure it, it's then also how we present that information. And, our website is our most forward-facing piece of information out there. So we really had to think critically about the best way to present this on our website so that it was easy to navigate and to understand. And I think, I think we did that. So.
Yeah, I think it came out really well. And before I was concerned that there were certain gaps in how, certain things that maybe certain work didn't fit into a bucket. And I know that this makes me very kind of type A about information, but I really want to make sure that we're explaining our work comprehensively. And as you said, that interconnectedness is so important, right? The leachate from landfills is one of the main things that makes the sludge in wastewater treatment plants so toxic. We need to shut down our landfills and close as many of those landfill cells as possible so that we're not creating as much leachate. All of those things are interconnected. So thanks, Liv, for and all your hard work on that. Because again, a lot of people aren't too self-critical of their work, and they say, "Well, I did that a couple years ago. I'm not going to redo it now." But you very much led the work to make sure that we reconfigured our website to better match what the work looks like, and I think that's fantastic. A lot of work and really worthwhile. Vanessa, turning to you, from a policy and advocacy perspective, if you could identify the overarching buckets and and talk about them a little bit and how those things overlap, and then also break down the key areas of zero waste advocacy to explain what Liv and I are talking about a little bit better.
Sure thing. So as y'all mentioned, it was really important for us to make sure that the overlap and how these different policies impact one another is easily communicated to folks who are working on these issues. So we decided to organize and communicate our work under these four projects, which is preventable waste, corporate pollution, zero waste systems, and healthy environments. Because we really felt that this really hit the integration home. Sometimes as we're working on these policy issues, we see that sometimes progress in these policies arise because there's so much siloing. And so really making sure that in all of our communication and all of our policy work, the fact that these policies really play on one another is really important. And another reason why, which kind of being clear in our communication, is to make it go hand in hand with making these policies accessible. One of the things that Just Zero really is always striving for and always is wanting to improve on is making sure our education as well as our resources in pushing these policies is accessible to anyone who wants to push these forwards. So we want to break down these key areas of zero waste advocacy to make it accessible for local communities to spot how, oh, actually, this is important to me and change is achievable. So, for example, if you're thinking, I don't want corporate pollution in my community, I look into that with Just Zero's resources and I see, oh, bottle bill. Bottle bill can be an answer to this. I've heard some things about bottle bills. Maybe I've heard some negative things about bottle bills. But then connecting that with this overarching idea of I want to prevent corporate pollution from impacting my community really kind of makes it more integrated and makes it hit home with folks as to why these policies work. And the reason why accessibility is like very critical in policy work is because a lot of these policies work better at the local level. And we're a national organization, but we're a small organization. We can't be everywhere. It's really the local communities that take on this mission and push it forward.
That's absolutely correct, Vanessa. And it really is interesting. We can't be everywhere yet. We'll keep growing and we'll keep working on it. But everyone can get to our website and see all these great toolkits that you've drafted and with the rest of the team. And you're absolutely right. If you're worried about pollution, working on it locally is huge. For instance, bottle bills help clean up litter. There's nothing more local than litter. So that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. Yeah. Moving on to another conversation, and I think that this is again, it's all building on itself and it's all linked together. We've been advancing a new model for zero waste advocacy based on, built on the education policy and community engagement that Just Zero is all about. And we want to dig into how we look past outdated models. There's a lot of static models for laws out there. Well, first I would say there's a lot of folks who don't write laws at all, right? And I'm always amazed at the state, federal, wherever legislature I'm working with, that there aren't folks who necessarily know how to write laws. So that's one thing. There's a dearth of good lawmaking in the world for good causes. We see lots of laws written by polluting corporations and and associations with polluting corporations, but not for folks who want to make change to protect public health the way Just Zero does. Um, and we also see that people are, treating waste as inevitable. And still, instead of building towards a just community powered zero waste future, they're stuck. So we have three pillars again: education, policy, and communication, community engagement, that we really focus on to get these toolkits out there, to get this work done. If you could talk a little bit, Liv, about education and giving people the facts and tools they need to act, that would be great.
So, for me, the education pillar of our work is really all about utilizing the different mediums available to us to engage with others. So we're talking about email, social media, graphics, stories, videos, reports, presentations, events, you name it. The list goes on. There are so many different ways to educate, and it's really critical that we use all of those mediums because everyone learns differently. Myself, for example, I am a very visual learner. And so seeing information broken down in a visual way can really help me to fully grasp or understand an issue or concept better. But not everyone is a visual learner. So it's my job as communications director and all of our jobs here at Just Zero to diversify the ways that we educate so that we can reach as many people as possible. In addition to that, I'll add, and going back to what Vanessa was just saying a little bit ago, it's also about accessibility. You can talk all about an issue as much as you want, but if it's complex, if there's a lot of insider language and jargon, you are not going to reach people because they will not understand what you're talking about. So you also need to simplify what you're saying, really just get the main key points across. And that doesn't mean that you need to, lose the facts. It's just simplifying the information to the core pieces that can pull someone in and really get their attention and to explain the basics of what is going on.
Right.
Yeah.
How about our toolkits and how we use them to educate folks, Vanessa?
Yeah, so one of the tools that we offer is our model legislative toolkits. And not only is this a kind of educational tool where you can have a resource of getting up to speed on various zero waste policies, some of the technical terms within this work, how the legislative process works. But you can actually use this tool to create a bill or ordinance for your community. And thanks to Olivia, we've kind of developed it in a fun and engaging way. And actually, what the creative thing about our toolkits is you can actually pick and choose depending on the policy that we educate you on as you go through the toolkit. And I think it makes a big difference when you're hoping to push forward a zero waste policy in your community. If you can have a tangible document that you hand over to your legislator and kind of see how they understand it, and you can explain it after we've kind of given you a framework of some of the policy options, and see how they'll work with you. And having that document really can get the ball rolling, maybe get you kickstarted in a way that you might not have had all of that momentum in the past. But again, as we're going through the toolkit, you are learning about it. So you are developing your own ability to speak articulately on this policy and push forward that policy. And right now, our toolkits are on bottle bills, food waste prevention and recycling, single-use plastic bans, packaging reduction and recycling, high heat waste facilities, and truth in labeling. And we're also soon to have a toolkit on sewage sludge. And the other thing too is, so we have these kinds of snappy ways of explaining these very complex things, but we also provide, the toolkits I think kind of bridge the gap of like complex to simplifying, but we also have very in-depth materials like briefs and things like that that really kind of get more in the weeds if that is something that you feel like, okay, I'm at a level where I need to kind of build my knowledge a step um, more. And so we have those resources for you as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So the reports, I think, are fantastic. We've done some really good reports about how many landfills are in EJ communities and impacting those communities, mega landfills that is, in those communities. Our greenwashing report, which we're going to do annually now, so we're going to hopefully come out this winter with it again. Fantastic. I also think getting into those deep dives, we've often done really good comment letters on planning processes or on bills, ordinances, etc. And we're asked to testify all the time. Now, the verbal testimony is going to be 3 minutes, so it's going to be, as Vanessa said, snappy. But the written testimony, we're going to make sure all the resources are cited there. And we're all about citations. We're a bunch of lawyers and scientists, so we're all about citations. So that's something that's really important. One real world example of that, I think, that I saw make a difference and will continue, I hope, to make a difference. There's a company called Aries that wants to process sewage sludge using some kind of a pyrolysis gasification, so high heat, low oxygen technology to break the sewage sludge down. And their claim is that it destroys the forever chemicals like PFAS in it. But it doesn't. It doesn't destroy them all. And so this company built a facility in New Jersey. The second facility they proposed in New Jersey was stopped. The one they proposed in Taunton, we were working with the community early on, and we were able to give them all this information we had around these really toxic technologies. And that community rejected the facility. The Taunton facility is not going to happen. Now we're seeing them go to Maine. So again, these companies, take their tents and go someplace else and try and build these polluting facilities. So we need to be nimble in the same way and be able to take all the information that we presented and that we informed the community with on that. And again, our partners at Conservation Law Foundation are actually working with the community, and there are other folks who are helping organize the community doing the grassroots piece. But we can take the lessons learned from around the country and help out folks who are doing that kind of thing. So there's an example of exactly what you're talking about, Vanessa, taking complicated materials when they're needed, but also making sure we're doing the snappy, in-person explanations, meetings with legislators, et cetera, so they understand what's really going on.
Yeah, and another thing on kind of some of the more complex things that we have, we also develop reports. And I'm going to actually pass it over to Olivia because one of the key parts of it too does have that design component.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Kirsty mentioned it, and I'll talk a bit more about it. But our greenwashed 2024 report, that is a great example of kind of combining different ways of learning into one thing. So increasingly, greenwashing has come into the limelight. And for those of you who don't know, greenwashing is an umbrella term for any deception or misrepresentation by an entity to make something seem or appear more environmentally friendly or safe for consumers when it's not. So there are many different greenwashing tactics out there that companies, individuals, even the government uses. And it can get real confusing real quick. So we saw a need to help people better understand what greenwashing is by breaking those tactics down and using real world examples to highlight how these tactics are being used. So the report, the design, like Vanessa said, is a huge part of this. We designed it in a way that brought in, those real world examples, some summaries, but also a lot of visual aids to kind of help make it more clear and understandable what these tactics are, how they're being deployed. And we also provide some tips for, what to look out for as consumers and how to try and avoid greenwashing when possible.
Excellent. Thanks, Liv, for explaining that. Um, so we know looking at the next pillar, policy, advancing real zero waste solutions. Vanessa, could you tell us a little bit more about the onerous task of writing or reviewing bills and ordinances?
So when I guess to kind of explain, one of the things that we do is that kind of sets Just Zeros apart is that we really do that direct work. So we actually participate in the writing and the reviewing of bill language and ordinances when communities are hoping to push forward zero waste policy. And through that process, we were working with community members and advocates, as well as community organizations and coalitions, because we've done that work in other towns and states, we can spot where, some language may serve as a loophole, which defeats the purpose of the bill. Or on the other hand, we have seen or we come up with creative language to get to where we want to go, like what all of the community members or the coalitions, like the point of what they want to achieve, but to maybe not ruffle as many feathers along the way and get barriers kind of built up around the bill. So simply because of the way that we've written it just doesn't cause as much strife. And the thing that also helps is that our team, small but mighty, we are attorneys, scientists, and that experience and expertise kind of really assists us when we come to getting to like the actual concrete language of these bills and ordinances.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The devil is in the details for sure, Vanessa, on that stuff. Um, So we provide a lot of technical assistance to lawmakers and community members as we go, as Vanessa's explaining. We create these choose your own adventure toolkits, and then we actually get phone calls like we did in DC from the District of Columbia, looking at drafting and creating a bottle bill there. Not for the whole country, unfortunately, that would be awesome, but just for the District of Columbia, which would still be really fantastic. And the grassroots coalition reached out to us and said, what does a good bottle bill look like? What are some of the loopholes, as Vanessa said? What are some of the things you want to avoid? Dairy is one of those that most states avoid that for lots of reasons. Like, how can we make this straightforward and clear? And then we presented that to different counselors who were thinking about proposing the bill, and they actually went back to our toolkit and learned more about how, why certain things were in there, why certain things weren't. And then best case scenario, it really worked out well. They also looked at what the district needed and made it particular to the district. Because again, we're not the experts in everybody's community. We're not supposed to be. And anybody who purports to be the expert in your community, they're not respecting you the way that you should. You're the expert in your home. So that worked out really well. And the bill that is before the council that should be voted on this winter is really excellent and also unique. So based on what we did, but then also totally unique. And we're really hopeful that the district will pass it this winter, because it'd be fantastic to have a deposit return system there. Liv, did you want to talk about some other wins and ways that we're getting this information out to folks, the policy piece?
So, in how we reach people, it's really about meeting them where they're at and, kind of utilizing all of those different mediums that I was talking about before. So, getting the message out on social media, on, via email. If you are not already subscribed to our emails, make sure you are so that you are kept in the loop on, the different things that we're doing or the different waste news that is happening across the country and the world, because we keep tabs on all of that, especially in our monthly e-newsletter. So yeah, we're using all of these ways to not only highlight our own work, but to support other organizations and the good work that is being done by other groups and communities across the country, because there really is so much good work being done, and we feel it's important to highlight that as well because other people are doing great things.
That's absolutely true. And that brings us to, centering the people most impacted on this work. So if you have something that you're doing, if something happened in your community, you're working on something, or you just want to make people aware, yeah, always reach out to us so that we can highlight you in the very excellent newsletter that Olivia and Sakina, our communications associate, put together. Vanessa, could you talk a little bit, when we say we center the people impacted, like that sounds really good. But could you talk a little bit about how we don't parachute in and how we build long-term relationships in this piece? Because I think Liv led us right to this conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we approach our work, we are really valuing the deep and long-lasting relationships that we're developing. We don't think change or, like excellent, good change will really happen in a community where the community members aren't the leaders of the conversation. So when we're working with community in the various projects or like the legislation or ordinance that a community is trying to pass, it really starts out with someone reaching out to us. As Kirsty has mentioned, like we have several examples where someone just kind of is interested or maybe like dipping their toes in. Maybe they're even further along, but they just feel like they need a little bit more oomph in terms of expertise or support. And they reach out to us. And that is the way that we work. We know that these policies are not a one size fits all approach. The country is huge, and we know that there are many different realities that communities across this country are facing. And so we really want to serve as a tool in your tool belt. We want to be that hammer, that screwdriver that you pull out because you feel that we can provide a service for you to get to that zero waste policy change.
Yep, that's exactly right. Liv, did you want to say a little bit more about, you know, meeting people where they're at? I think you covered it pretty well, but is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I'll just add on to, what Vanessa was just touching on. Again, there is no one size fits all solution.
Mhm.
What works for one community likely won't work for another, and that is okay. I think something that historically, the environmental movement has done is have this picture perfect idea of this is the best route and this is how it has to work. And that's, structure, it really doesn't give people room to
Right.
do what works best for them and their community. And so perfection doesn't exist in this world. And I,
That's right.
I think
Yeah.
by acknowledging that, um, we can understand that it's baby steps. And, striving for perfection, great, but it's going to take a while. And, movement after movement after movement, we will get there. That's what progress is. And so that's what it's all about. We are here to help you progress. We are here to support you, to, help strengthen bill language, campaigns, systems, ideas. We're here to help strengthen, but ultimately, it's what's best for you and your community.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I always say that there are some ideas that are always bad, right? Like if you're going to burn something, that's a bad idea. If you're going to bury it, that's a bad idea. If you're going to mix it all together and then thinking separate it out, that's a bad idea. But as you said, Liv, there isn't something that's good for everybody. There's just not. Backyard composting is not going to work for some folks. Drop-off composting is not going to work for some folks. It depends on your community and who you are. And we've seen this in the real world that, are looking at the textile law in California, the EPR. textiles law, SB 707, we're seeing that there are some things there where there's an opportunity to do some good things and working with coalition, the Healthy Textiles Coalition with Fibershed and other partners across the country. We've got opportunities to do some good things there. We've seen that, for instance, we can help people also, like, as we said, we draft laws, we help draft regulations, definitely. We also let people know in their campaigns what levers to pull. I got a call this summer from some people that I've worked with for, I think about 5 or 6 years now, maybe longer, asking, they have attorneys who represented them at a local hearing about a waste facility. What should they focus on? And they were talking about transportation experts. And I said, no, no, no. Transportation experts are never going to say there's going to be tons of traffic. Traffic experts are never going to say there's going to be a lot of traffic, or they won't get hired by the next client. Fires and rats. Fires and rats. That's something that all waste facilities have in common, because they're all a bad idea. So, like, those are the kinds of pieces of advice that we can point to what happened in another community and hook you up and let you talk to those folks so that they can help tell you who your experts are. So that's always a good thing. Not only the language, as Vanessa just pointed out, and how we redraft language and fix it up and make sure there's no loopholes, what's worked in other states, etc., but also campaigns and ideas that have worked because they resonate. And then you pick and choose what's going to work for your community. So to shift to another topic of conversation, we want to talk to you about how you can support our work. We are a nonprofit. We do not charge folks for helping them. We don't do that. But we need support or we won't exist. And we got to keep everybody in shoe leather. So Liv, if you could talk a little bit about how people can support us, not just with cash, we will take your cash, but other ways that they can support us and all the work that we do through our website and on social.
It's a great question, Kirsty, because there are so many different ways to support all nonprofits, but also Just Zero. So one of the first and foremost things that you can do is subscribe to our emails and engage with the content that we share there. It's a way that we like to engage with you, our followers, the people who are interested in this work and want to take action. So that's a great way to come into this fold and support us and support the work we do. Similarly, following us on social media and also interacting with us on social media. We are constantly creating new content on there. Our communications associate, Sakina Jones, is incredible and has come up with some amazing reels and videos and different ideas. And so, interacting with those really helps to garner reach for us as well. And that helps to gain more followers and more attention, which, everyone always wants more attention. So subscribing to our emails, following us on social media, interacting with us on social media, but then also things like this, participating in and attending our virtual events, our webinars. This is one of the ways that we can connect directly with you all, and it's one of the ways that we educate and also showcase and highlight other experts who are doing this work and bring them right to you. So participating in our events is another great way to support us. And then sharing and engaging with all of our resources. We talked about the greenwashing report earlier and our toolkits, interacting with those and sharing them with friends, family members who you think would be interested or, are looking to get involved in this work. That's a great way. And, one of the last things, but it's not the least by any means, engaging with your local media to highlight these issues. That's a huge way that you can get involved and support, this work locally as well.
Yeah, I will say, if you have not checked out our social media, Sakina Jones has got a quirky take on things. She's such a creative, quirky, but then also she gets right to the heart of things, like beautifully aggressive in her communication in some ways while still being whimsical. I don't know how to explain it better than that. So if you haven't seen the work that Sakina's doing, you go check it out. If you're on social media, check this out. And as Liv said, repost, repost, repost. That's how people start paying attention to it. So we get to another network. Another thing too that we have on our list of ways that you can interact with us. We are delighted to do free webinars and free presentations online all the time. I can't tell you, I'm going to do one tomorrow to a partnering organization. I did one for an Ohio group last week. We do them all the time virtually. If you want us in person, it's sometimes we ask for a donation because you know, an honorarium, because honestly, I can't be driving all over this country. It's just not safe. You don't want that. But we do a ton of presentations, and it's not just me. We've got, you know, as you saw today, we have tremendous depth on the bench. Not only do we have Vanessa Zapata, and Olivia can talk about the communications piece, and we've got Kevin Boudris and Peter Blair, also attorneys who are experts in zero waste, and then our senior scientist Laura Orlando, who can talk about sludge and wastewater treatment and PFAS and public health. She also is an adjunct professor at the BU School of Public Health. We'll do presentations all day, every day if you let us. So please, you know, look us up for that too. Vanessa, what are some other ways, you know, thinking about the policy and advocacy work, what are some other ways that folks can be involved with our stuff?
Yeah, well, so from the policy and advocacy perspective, not only interacting with the materials that we have on our website, but also using it. So if you use our toolkit to present a bill in your community, that's awesome. That's what we want. And we'd love to have more examples and stories about how these materials that we're providing free of charge are really being useful to you guys. And so ultimately, our mission is to get these zero waste policies as the norm throughout the country. And so if you are using our materials to get that done, that's amazing, and that's what we want. And then another thing that's really critical is if you happen to know of a zero waste policy being pushed forward, maybe you're not leading the charge. I mean, we'd love for you to be leading the charge, but maybe you're not. You can contribute your support. You can provide testimony. You can educate your representative. And you're also welcome to connect them with our organization. So maybe you want them to really understand what the bottle bill is about and kind of the nuances, and maybe understand what opposition language is and why, you know, it might not make sense. You can have them reach out to us, and we can connect you with one of us on the team to help educate that person or that group that you want to really understand these policies. And then, of course, you can always reach out to us for technical assistance if you're moving forward through one of these policies and you feel like you need some support. Please feel free to reach out to us, because ultimately anything that gets us closer to a society with these zero waste systems in place is where we want to be, is what our organization is really pushing and striving for.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah. You want us to testify, let us know. Send us what the bill is and let us know what you're trying to do. Absolutely, we want to testify in that situation. It's usually virtual, but that helps. And I also say to people all the time, as you said, Vanessa, identify the heroes in your legislature or your council, and we're happy to talk to them and educate them on policies if they need a deeper dive, or send them our materials. And also, phone calls matter to those folks. It's about 6 phone calls before someone who, you know, in a local government thinks that something's an issue to their constituents. So all of those pieces make a huge difference. Don't ever think whatever you're doing, whether it's being on a recycling board in your community, or starting a composting program, or just sharing and reaching out and educating all your friends and family and being like the zero waste geek in your circle. As someone who's been doing that for a long time, you get a lot of weird questions at parties, but it's really a worthwhile role, and you can get a lot of good information to people's hands. So yeah, great answer, Vanessa, and great answer, Liv. I think that we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to. Any other points, Liv or Vanessa, before we turn to questions?
Yeah, I would just add, you know, development, fundraising. That's another great way that people can support us. You know, we can only keep operating if we have the funds to do so. And we all feel that this is really important and critical work that, you know, should be and needs to happen across the country. We're trying to make the world a better place to live for everyone. So,
Yeah.
if you can support us and our work by giving a monetary donation, that would be incredible.
Yeah, we love our monthly supporters. You don't have to be a big supporter to be very valued by us. If you have rich friends, tell them about this. We are a very trustworthy organization. Because we work across the whole country, we can help the people who want us to help them. And if something's not working, we can help someone else. And then on top of that, we really spend almost all of our money, because we're a virtual organization, virtual national organization, on salaries. So we're building a really great culture of people who work hard, and we're trying to pay them as much as possible. So please, please, please support us. That's a really good point, Liv. Thank you for making it. So there's a couple of questions. We've got one from Meredith that says, I have started sending bag packaging back to companies with a letter. I think it might have so far have some merit if it were done on a large scale. Any thoughts? Um, yeah, I think that that is a really good question. We're seeing we those kinds of campaigns, which I'd call a corporate campaign, are really powerful. Vanessa, what do you think?
I think we kind of go over this a lot in some of work, and part of the conversation is always the coming together as consumers can be quite a powerful voice. Corporations are not going to listen unless there's money involved. And so if we're going to be able to do collective action, and I think, and they can kind of see it with their dollars, that's going to be impactful. And that can be something like a corporate campaign. But ultimately, we do need these laws to keep them accountable, because they're just money matters to them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's another tool in the toolbox, if you will. Yeah, absolutely. All right, we've got another question here from Brian. Can I explain why leachate from landfills impacts biosolids in Colorado, excuse me, landfills are not allowed to have water in the soil. The cells are lined and the water is pumped to be reapplied to the landfill over and over again. So, yes, I'm happy to talk about this. This is something, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of this, I'm happy to do a presentation on this anytime. Landfills are lined. Modern landfills are lined. Old cells many times are not. So that's one thing. And also, any landfill that is lined, the liner eventually breaks down. Best case scenario, the liner system, because there's usually a clay and plastic liner, and then some trash, and then another clay and plastic liner set out. Those liner systems usually break down within about 20 years, best case scenario. So there is going to be some leaking from the landfill for sure. That's not how the leachate gets into the wastewater treatment plants, though. Landfill leachate is collected in landfill cells through pipes. The pipes are then the leachate is collected in the pipes, and leachate is, think of it as landfill coffee. It's like it's all the contaminants that are in the landfill, anything you can purchase that's toxic in the United States in the landfill, leaching into the precipitation, whatever rain or snow there is. Now, obviously, in a place that's more dry, and I would assume Colorado is much more dry than, for instance, Massachusetts, though I'm no expert on that. A place that's more dry would have less leachate because there's less snow and less other or rain, for instance. But regardless, that precipitation is collected through the pipe system and then sent to a wastewater treatment plant. That's where they process leachate. Some of it may be collected and then put back onto the landfill, as you said. When that happens, we see that the landfill is wetter and there's increased methane. So that is not necessarily a good thing, Brian, that the leachate is going back into the system. However, and I would also be very suspicious of all the leachate being recirculated in the system. I'd have to see the numbers to know if that was the case, and also how much rain you're getting in Colorado. But what we see is that the excess gallons of leachate are most definitely pumped into wastewater treatment plants, and because they contain every chemical sold in the United States, basically, the leachate has very high concentrations of some of them, like heavy metals, perfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, that family of chemicals, and other families of chemicals like volatile organic compounds, PCBs, you name it, it's in there, unfortunately. And then when that goes into wastewater treatment plants, that leachate is processed there, but there is nothing in any wastewater treatment plant across the country pretty much that can actually take those dangerous chemicals out of the system. Instead, those chemicals either end up in the outflow pipe into the river or ocean, or they end up adhering to sludge, or they end up off-gassing into the environment. So leachate most definitely is going to wastewater treatment plants across the country, and unfortunately not truly being processed there, just kind of running through the system. And a lot of really dangerous chemicals adhere to a sludge as a result. There are other industrial leachates that are also going to a wastewater treatment system, not just landfills, but landfills is the example that show how if we close down more of our cells in our landfill, we will have less leachate, because that's really the only way to make sure that rain doesn't get into the system. I hope that answered the question for you, Brian, and we can always follow up on that. And then we've got lots of materials about landfills on our website as well. I've got another question here from Catherine for Vanessa. If a policy is passed that is poorly written or needs to be adapted over time, how can we make sure that happens?
Yeah, so that is something that kind of is always a problem when something becomes precedent and then we kind of have to adapt around it. But that's part of the policy work. You kind of have to pivot, you have to be creative. And so working with groups, working with Just Zero, other organizations, where, this is the reality that my community has. What can I do to still get to where I want to get to? So depending on that situation, we can maybe identify different other policies that kind of maybe get around it, or maybe we can figure out ways to address that bad policy and maybe like get it out of the books to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of false solutions that are unfortunately adopted, or weak laws that then kind of take up the oxygen for the legislature or city at that time. Like if you pass a weak extended producer responsibility for packaging law, which has happened in some states, then a lot of the times the legislators aren't interested in doing something else for the environment. And many times you're not actually reducing packaging. You're putting some funding into recycling, but not necessarily going there. So that's a really good point, Vanessa. And again, we're responding to where you're at in the community, because we know it's easy to say something's not perfect. As Liv said, perfect can be the enemy of the good. So we don't want to get too nuts about that too. Liv, would you mind going a little bit more into, you touched on this earlier, which was excellent, what regular citizens can do for around legislative change and advocacy that will actually have an impact? What have we seen that's had the most impact, you think?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kirsty. And I think there's various answers depending on, how you go about it. So, as we have come to know, the most immediate change happens at the local level. So, getting involved with your city, your town, your community, and, advocating for things there, that can have a more immediate impact and immediate change. If you want to get involved in your state level, then, I recommend connecting with organizations like Just Zero to learn more about what you can do at the state level. Or, find a group in your state who's working specifically for change in your state and get involved with them. So those are some of the ways that you can, start to get involved. But then, organizations like Just Zero, we have action alerts that you can take action on, and the target of who these action alerts are going to varies depending on what the alert is about. Oftentimes, it's sending emails to legislators, governors, companies, corporations, telling them we want change. So doing things like that, calling, your legislators, your, towns and cities to really call for change, that can do a lot of good. Sometimes you need to be a little persistent, but it can work. And especially if you gather more people to join you in that mission, we have more power in numbers. So, getting more people to join you or joining a group that already exists, and taking their lead can do a lot of good.
Yeah, thanks, Liv. That makes total sense. So just to finish us up here, because I think we've gone through most of our questions. I already talked about New Bedford and how they stopped the Dirty Murph there, the materials recycling facility that was basically just taking trash and shipping out of the place. I just heard that they're having an appeal. So pay attention to that, folks, if you're interested in that. But that's the kind of work we do all over the place. Again, if you're in DC, get involved with the Bottle Bill campaign down there. What are, for each of you, what are you most looking forward to doing in the next like 8 or 9 months at Just Zero? What are you most excited about that we're going to be working on in these next 8 or 9 months? Vanessa, you first.
Well, I'm excited to get to know more groups and more like coalitions with the upcoming like strategy session before legislative session. So, now is the time to start thinking through, strategizing, speaking with your legislator about bills that you want to push forward in the next legislative session. And so connecting with groups and being able to provide that assistance that they're looking for is just really gratifying. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and you're great at that, Vanessa. So that's going to be wonderful. We work with coalitions all over the country. If you want to pass a food waste version, get the food out of your disposal system. If you want to pass a bottle bill, if you want to pass a sludge-free land bill where you're getting the sludge, stopping the sludge from being spread on land in your community, any of those things, yeah, reach out to Vanessa because she wants to work with your coalition. All of the stuff in our toolkits, but then other ideas you have too. Please reach out to Vanessa and see how she can tap into your coalition and work with her. That's fantastic. What about you, Liv? What are you looking forward to? I noticed that Vanessa didn't say revising any more toolkits or revising any more laws. She wants to work with some people. So please call her, guys, because we don't want her just stuck in a closet working on this stuff all the time. Liv, what about you? What are you looking forward to over the next 8 or 9 months?
Oh, there's so much. But as a communications person, I absolutely love creating content and coming up with new ideas, new strategies of how to garner more reach from our content and how to bring more people into the fold. So I'm really looking forward to, sitting down and coming up with some new strategies, working with other team members to, think outside of the box and come up with new content ideas.
I think she froze on us.
What are you excited for, Kirsty?
Boy, I'm excited about a lot of stuff. We have a new development director, Dr. Eric Lane. That makes me really excited. He's lovely, and it's going to be a lot of fun working with him. I'm also really excited about the greenwashing report that I know you and Liv have already started figuring out. That's going to be great. And then I'm excited about working with new groups. We just got another question here in the chat saying that they're a community that's fighting an incinerator in rural New York State. And that's exactly what you were talking about. How can we get our resources to these folks and also hook them up with other people we know? So that's what I'm excited about. And I'm also, I have to say, Vanessa, not just excited about the new guy that we've brought on, Dr. Eric Lane. He's fantastic, but I'm excited about working with this team. This is the best job I've ever had, and I love working with all of you. So that, I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world because I get to work with such nice, hardworking, smart people. So that's what keeps me going. That's for sure, Vanessa. Thank you all for being on our webinar, our series of webinars this week, the Waste Free Future Summit. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have today. Please make sure you keep in mind that we're going to do this again next year. So keep an eye out for the summit next year and also who we should be working with on that. Please remember to donate to Just Zero. We want to keep we don't have lights to keep on because we don't have a brick and mortar shop, as we said, but we got to keep these people paid. We got to make sure that they all have a nice pair of shoes, as we always say. And please donate. That's going to be in the chat too. And I think that that's it. Yeah, please give us money. Please support our work. Please engage in any way you can. And if you're a coalition who wants to do some work, call Vanessa. That's it. Oh, and retweet and repost and all of our stuff, and check out the fantastical mind of Sakina Jones, our communications associate online. I think that's it. Have a great night. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us today.